Mililani Trask, Indigenous Consultants.
Thank you, legislators. I'm here to support House Bill 2639. I'm very opposed to 1766. House Bill 2639 is a very critical measure, and when I testified before the Senate, I pointed out three things. As geothermal is moving forward, we need to ensure that the regulatory framework is clarified. This measure is doing exactly that. We need to make sure that it's clear in our law that anyone who wants to explore developing geothermal has to get a permit from the DLNR. That's not really been clarified. Another point that we need to really take care of is to ensure that people understand that geothermal resources belong to the state public trust. Right now there's a renewed effort on the part of private property owners to say that they own the minerals. And this matter, they tried to litigate this matter in the past. So it's important that the state reaffirm that minerals belong in the trust, and it is a question of revenues for the state because of the geothermal revenue. I think there's two major differences in these bills. One is the county processing, the other is the matter of health. The county put in a home rule measure about 25 years ago. That is the language in 2639. 2639 restores the county process. The process provided for the Planning Commission to have a public hearing, open to everyone. If disagreements arose, then those in disagreement went to mediation. Following good faith efforts in mediation, they returned for a second public hearing. If it could not be resolved at that time, the process provides for immediate appeal to the State Intermediate Court of Appeals. It goes straight up. That was the process the county wrote. That was the process the county has tried to get back in. That's why Mayor Kinoy is testifying. Onishi has sent testimony from our county council. If you take a look at the process in 1766, it's not geared to resolve conflict. It's geared to drag things on. They want to have a contested case hearing, and following that, they want to commence full litigation in the circuit court. Big Island already went through this in the case of Mauna Kea. The contested case was 6 years. 6 years was the contested case. The thing is that a mediation process was started by Kuivalu. After 2.5 years, I left the case. I was participating in the contested case, but when they started the mediation effort for a solution, many of us left, worked with the Kuivalu. We came to a good solution. We came to the solution and resolved it 2 years before the contested case ended. We're dealing with energy. What we need to do is balance interests, hear everyone's concern, provide for conflict resolution. And if it fails, take it immediately up to the intermediate court. This process already worked. This process was already used. The first case from Big Island went up to the intermediate court. Environmentalists were saying that it wasn't a fair process. They didn't have due process. It was only for developers. The intermediate court struck them down and ruled that due process was provided by the Big Island process through mediation. The intermediate court supported the mediation effort because it was expedient, allowed for balancing of interest and immediate court review. In terms of the health study, I would really suggest that you might want to take a look at what Mr. Patrici and others are saying is a health study. No one that conducted the study had any background in medical toxicology. There was one old retired medical person. All the rest of them were Bob Patrici and his friends. If you haven't read the report that we all were sent publicly, the health report, I think you should. In my testimony, I've quoted directly from the report and given you the page. Their report says that the public health profile in Puna is unclear, but the majority of people living in Puna, or 84.2%, report themselves to be in good health. The report says this: there were health effects from exposure in the early development of geothermal before 1993. But after 1993, the study group was uncertain if there were any health effects. The report also found this. Since 1991, no health study has identified any health effects that could be attributed to geothermal development. Since 1991, no health study showed a negative health effect attributed to geothermal. What they didn't tell you was since 1991, there were 2 health studies undertaken. They were undertaken in 1997, one by the State Department of Health. The other came from the federal government Center for Toxicology. The State Department of Health found January 12, 1997, that the health surveys from Mr. Patrici and others were bogus, and that they had been created in order to influence settlements in litigation. He's right. There were 130 lawsuits, all settled out. And if you look at the settlement documents, it says without a finding of liability. Ormat paid $2 million to stop the litigation. They took it as a tax write-off, but they never proved any nexus to negative health. What did the state health survey show? The state health survey showed that the complaints for ill health could not be substantiated. The state, and this was Bruce Anderson's finding, the health surveys from Puna were bogus, and they were doctored to try to influence the settlement payoffs coming from the lawsuit. The federal government came in, and it was Danny Noy who ensured that they would come in. They had a consultation in Puna. They did a full report on it, and in my testimony I give you the citation for the report. What they found was that the concentration of hydrogen sulfide in the monitoring stations in Puna did not pose a health hazard. The federal government also found that the standards established by the federal government were appropriate. Under the recommendation session, the federal government made no recommendation because they did not support the allegations that they were claims for ill health. There were only 3 real groups of cases that moved forward on the health issue. The 130 that Mr. Patrici is talking about that never proved health but got $2 million. He himself has admitted that he got tens of thousands but won't tell us how many. The second point I think that is important in this in terms of health is that it is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health. Where's the Department of Health? They didn't come in last year. They didn't come in this year because they did their report in 1997,
Can I ask you to summarize?
Which you haven't looked at, and they found that this was not only not credible, but it was bogus. It was a fraud. We'd like to see geothermal move forward. We think that folks already recovered $2 million shouldn't be advancing claims. I have no problem looking at a health report, but let it be one that is written by health professionals and not people that picked up tens of thousands and are still on the list waiting for relocation funds from the county. There's a good reason why the other state agencies are deferring to the Department of Health, because this is a health matter, and all health is regulated already by statute. Why? Why? Are you making a determination that is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health? You didn't even read the health report of Bruce Anderson, nor the federal report. It's in my testimony because I think you should read it. Let's move forward with geothermal. Let's stop fabricating claims for persons to get settlements. Only one case went up. Maureen Gap. Go read it. The court threw her out because her own experts couldn't show that her respiratory problems came from geothermal. Only one case went forward. She lost it. Hawaiians took our case to the Supreme Court and won. Since that time, there's been no desecration. Punapono Alliance took 130 cases, never proved illness, but picked up $2 million.
Trask, we're going to have to
Bruce
move on, but we'll
Anderson
come
was
back
right.
and question and answer.
It's a scam.
Thank you.